So I originally reached out to you because I own a mammography center in Johannesburg. And in the last little while, I've been trying to bring more holistic health principles into the space. I think because I've experienced the miracle of the body and the healing and the emotions. So I'm just trying to bring it to everyone's attention through different avenues. So I reached out to you to talk a little bit more about what pain and disease in the breast tells us and speaks to us about. This month we're doing a little bit of a lymphatic drainage, breast massage. So I just want a little mindfulness around what they can be thinking about in those moments, you know?
That's beautiful. And I just think this subject, I mean, it just needs to reach out there to women everywhere, doesn't it, really?
Amazing, because I see these patients in there and they're either petrified of finding something or petrified that they're sick and they've had to put their healing into the hands of someone else. And it's just terrifying and so disempowering. And
Yeah.
I know what we can do. So I just want to spread the word. And I love your
Beautiful.
work so,
Oh, thank
so
you.
much, so much.
Well, thank you so much. It's going to be a really interesting conversation, and let's see where it takes us. Have you, because it's such a broad subject, have you got some questions that we can focus on?
So I don't really. I think I'd like to just start with your understanding of the mind-body connection and what our emotions, where they could get stuck, why they get stuck, and how that could lead to disease, like in the understanding of your work. And then if we could speak specifically about breast pain and breast disease and what that could be speaking to.
Absolutely. Okay. So this is great because this gives me a chance to sort of put an overview here.
Mhm.
So the way I see the body is as a manifestation of the mind. So we have created our body. Obviously, we come into the world with a set of genetics and this physical body with a particular focus. For each of us has a particular focus, a particular set of experiences that we're here to experience for our own growth and our own learning. But within that corridor of experience, we have so much control that we're really not aware of how we shape our lives and as well how we shape our bodies. So for me, there are so many programs that are running in the background for us because we grow up in a particular family, we grow up with a particular society and a particular culture, and that culture provides us with a framework for what's right, what's wrong, how we're supposed to behave, how we're supposed to think, and a set of rules about the world that we live in. However, it may not be true. The set of rules that we've learnt about ourselves and how we sit in the world and how our culture works and our society and may not be true. And for me, when we are growing into adulthood and we reach a place where we've got dreams and ideas and we've got this creative flow, but that creative flow gets stuck because of the people that are around us, because of our environment, because of the patterns or the rules we've taken on as beliefs. And we all come up against these invisible sort of membranes, if you like, these invisible glass walls where we see other people having other experiences. And we go, oh, yeah, I'd like to do that. I would like to be having that experience. But we find we get stuck. And we get stuck because this set of rules is active in our nervous system. And as soon as we stretch into that glass wall and go, I'd like to go through that, our nervous system kicks in with fear. And fear is what keeps us in these boxes, but we're not particularly happy. So we become less and less happy. And on top, is this all making sense so far?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And so on top of that, we don't realize our own power, and we don't realize the power of our mind and how our mind is creating that glass wall, and how we can undo that within ourselves. So the patterns that we take on in our lives because of the rules that we've learned about how we're supposed to live affect every single cell of our bodies. So, for example, if somebody thinks they don't look good because of a norm that is present in their culture or their society, that says, actually, no, you shouldn't look like that. You should be thinner, you should be bigger, you should be this, you should be that. Then every single cell feels that. And every single cell shrinks a little bit because
Loses its energy, loses its vibrancy, right?
absolutely, absolutely. And I think my work is really, it's not just about here's an illness, it means that this emotion is at the root of it. My work is, I feel, is much bigger than that, because it's really, I really want to empower people. But illness comes along in our lives and it creates so much fear. And our whole society, our whole Western culture is telling us constantly that what we should do and what we shouldn't do to avoid death. And it all comes down to this fear, and then we live our lives in a very small box because we're very fearful of becoming anything or being anything, and we fear the pain, and we fear the difficulty in stretching ourselves into the growth and expansion that is naturally our birthright.
And the concept of healing and health has been outsourced to other people. So we've actually lost, we've been told we don't have the degree, we don't have the knowledge, and we kind of have to hand that over to someone else. And I'd like to create a dialogue between the two where you're contributing to your own health and healing, and forming a dialogue with these doctors who know the mechanics of the body, and you can work together in the healing,
Yes.
you
Well,
know?
I think that is, I mean, I think that would be the perfect solution, where we've got that understanding that it is your mind that is often creating these imbalances in your body, and that we had more help available to us to facilitate that growing into your own potential and understanding what your own limitations are and how you are creating those imbalances within yourself. However, we've got a long way to go to get all of the
We've got a long way to
officialdom,
go.
yeah, the Western medicine online with that. So I think the most important conversation is the one that we have with ourselves. And we have to start from there, and then that will grow outwards. And part of that whole process is understanding that we are powerful, and that we are driving this vehicle, this body, this physical body that we're in is actually driven by what's happening in our minds, by our thoughts, by our intentions, and by our beliefs. So for me, a lot of this work is undoing the beliefs that were there, that have been existing in your body and showing up as limitations in your body.
Could you explain a little bit how that works in terms of emotions being energy and energy in motion that gets stuck if not processed. I'm assuming that's the same line.
All
Yes.
part of it. Yes,
Yes.
exactly. So, so I think of the emotional side of things as this bridge between thought energy and physical energy. Um, so for example, what we have information coming in through our eyes all the time. So we see something that might represent a potential threat, or we feel something. We feel somebody else's anger. That is then perceived as a potential threat. And then as that information comes into us through our own lens of perception, the nervous system then says, oh, threat, red light, and it creates the emotion. The emotion comes from the energy of, and the perception of threat. So the emotion of fear then starts to run through our body, and our adrenaline starts to rise, and we do all the avoidance tactics that we have learnt to do where when fear is there threatening us. Now, one of those coping mechanisms can be anger. So that knee-jerk reaction that you make when somebody says one thing and you think your whole body is perceiving a threat, we're going to attack rather than defend. We might just attack. So we might have a knee-jerk reaction of anger. So we might fly off the handle. We might snap at somebody. Anger is a natural defense for us, but it's also an emotion that moves very quickly and very powerfully through us. But we have learnt, and I'm talking about women in particular, that have learnt that anger is dangerous and we shouldn't show that anger. And I'm just using this as an example. We could use this with any emotion that comes up. But anger is a particularly common issue I see in terms of trying to suppress it. So instead of quickly defending your boundary, somebody closes up and holds that anger inside. And when an emotion like anger, which is powerful and volcanic, is held inside, then all that energy is then squished into those cells and those spaces in the body. Do that for long enough, and we're talking about a chronic pain, stress and disease, because we're holding in something that should have been let go of. So if we related this to any other part of our body, like if you held your breath in for any length of time, you know, it would not be you'd actually fall unconscious. You can't hold things in, but we exert power from our mind into holding these emotions in our body, and so that energy gets really stuck and it creates so many imbalances in the body.
Unless you're changing the thought pattern, you're perpetuating it over time. So it's building on
Yes.
itself all the time.
And it becomes automatic.
Yes.
So many people will say, I'm not an angry person and I don't get angry, but they might spend days and hours feeling frustrated and wishing somebody would change, or wishing this other thing would change, or wishing I was doing something different, I was in a different job and I don't want to do this, but they might still say, oh, I'm not angry. But they're actually
They're not
furious.
expressing their anger,
They're not,
but they're most angry inside.
because they've been taught from their set of rules that they shouldn't show anger because that's a bad thing to do. And so you're a bad person if you're angry, especially as a woman in many cultures, or depending on how you were brought up.
Mm.
And I'm saying this particularly because it does really affect the breasts. this
It
angle.
does, and it comes in a time where this is definitely the languaging that was spoken to the people who are coming for mammograms. So the 40, 50, 60, it was so prevalent within that age group that keep
Yeah.
quiet, don't, just be good, do the right thing, say the right thing, please everyone, nurture everyone. And I think that's where we're kind of leading to is, so what does disease and pain in the breast speak to? Because so many of our patients, I'd say about 50%, have breast tenderness. They constantly exist with tender, sore breasts.
Yeah.
What started me doing the oil and the lymphatic drainage this month, because you shouldn't be in pain or discomfort all the time. So what is it speaking to? What is it telling us? What should
Well,
we be doing?
I experienced this as well, so it's very familiar to me too, for many years. And when we think of those symptoms, if you ask any woman who's experienced those symptoms, there's this pressure and there's discomfort and there's this feeling like you want to protect yourself. You want to cross your hands over your body and actually not have anybody come near you or touch you. And the answer lies there. What do breasts mean? They are part of our femininity. They're the way we nourish and nurture other people. They're about intimacy as well, and sexual intimacy, but not only that, they're also about our relationships, and our loving relationships or our lack of loving relationships. So,
With self as well. Does
and
and
yes,
nurturing
absolutely.
with self. Um,
Yeah, and whatever we're feeling from outside of us is something that's mirrored inside of us. So if we're feeling a lack of love from outside coming in and desiring that, it's a reflection of the lack of love we are giving to ourselves as well. So the whole outer world is reflecting what's inside of us. And so all of those words that we just use for those symptoms, I can guarantee you that every woman with tender breasts is feeling pressure in some way, is feeling discomfort in some way, is wanting to protect herself from something that feels invasive or is too much, whatever that is. And every individual will have a different story behind those words. This is why it's quite hard to generalize completely. It doesn't just mean this or that. For one person, this might be about their relationship with their husband. For another one, it might be about their relationship with their mother or their children. But it is almost always about relationship when we talk about breasts. Because
so because what I'd like to do in this month's work is to, while they're doing the massage once a week or whatever, is just to take a moment to then maybe reflect where they are feeling this pressure, this lack of balance, like just to start an opening of a conversation with yourself.
and
Um,
an honest one.
it always, it's
And
hard to even know what, because when you don't know, you don't know, you know.
no, it's very true, but there's also all these protective mechanisms that come in and go, I shouldn't be talking about my husband like this. I shouldn't be talking about my children like this. I should be loving them. And I think that's why it's really important for people to hear this, because you can still love somebody very much, but find things uncomfortable. Loving someone else does not mean giving everything to them.
And I think so much of that speaks to the woman we're seeing, because our age group, we gave, And we had the career as well, but you're so busy nurturing everyone else around you
Yes.
that there's unless it's intentional, there's very little time and attention given to yourself. And also, I think that is why it is just screaming now. Like it has
Yeah.
to start with yourself, and then you can nurture the rest.
Yes, absolutely. When you think of the metaphor of tender breasts, they are, and if anyone's ever had children and breastfed them, it is that feeling of them being full and you wanting that relief when, which you would have got from feeding a child. But it's a symbol that there it is, have been giving, you're giving, and so much that everything becomes stagnated in the breast. You're nurturing others by giving, but you're not actually giving yourself the relief and yourself the the love, the self-love. So I find it really interesting because often cysts come from this as well, don't they? So breast cysts as well. It's like the lymphatic system becomes completely bunged up and stagnant, like there's a dam in the breast, and that's what you're doing, is you're offering that movement and moving the lymphatic system. But if you think about what the lymphatic system is holding, it's holding all the rubbish from everywhere in the body, and it's trying to drain it out. So there's this element of understanding that you're holding things for other people, you're holding emotions that haven't been expressed, you're holding discomfort, resentment, frustration, and it's all becoming quite toxic. So there's the symbolic picture there.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Amazing, amazing. And then, I mean, obviously this all progresses along the line, and then we eventually land up with disease and
Yeah.
cancers. And I think that's why it's on the rise so much. And I really, really want to do our bit for, we speak so much about screening. And screening isn't just a mammogram, like start screening your thoughts and start screening everything. And I really just want to bring that to the awareness of my patients. As I say, you don't know until you're given the information. Otherwise we just carry on with our lives as we've been told.
Exactly. And I think one thing that your patients might appreciate is the question, what would you change if you could? Right, honestly, what would you change if you could? You know, um would you be doing less at home? If would you just have would you give yourself your own space if you could do anything? Could you give yourself your own space, like 2 hours a day in just
I mean,
just
I'd
to
like them
be?
to start with 5 minutes.
Exactly. Yeah.
Just give
Yeah.
5 minutes. Can we
Yeah.
give ourselves 5 minutes a day? And that's what my hope is.
Yeah. Um, there's something else I can add in here as well about this idea of stagnation and everything getting stuck here from a Chinese medicine point of view, which is, of course, is my background. I used to see so many women with what's called a spleen heart block, because you've got under your arm this spleen meridian running up through to your armpit. And in your armpit is the first point of the heart meridian. And so this spleen energy comes up to the side of your breast and then goes deep, deep in through your heart and up to the armpit. And the meridian system is supposed to flow with energy. And so often what happens is the energy stops flowing. And if you think about the breasts and where they are and how they're covering your heart, and the spleen is a nurturing mother organ, and your heart is all that beautiful energy that you're here to express and all your potential of who you are to become. It's your sovereignty. Then there's this sticking point between the mothering and nurturing and this part of who you are really, and who you came here to be. And the energy sticks. And so I used to spend a lot of time as an acupuncturist unblocking this pathway with needles. So I just thought I'd just add that in. So
It's
this,
really relevant because a lot of what is done during the sonar is checking the nodes under the arms. So often when there's a problem there, there's a problem under the arm, which is exactly what you're saying, that the related energy is getting stuck.
yeah, yes, and it all represents this stagnated energy system. Um, and there's so much women can do for themselves, just in their own thoughts, but also in terms of setting their own boundaries and understanding that they deserve better. This, what you've been taught about complying to these really outdated norms of, female, male is, I mean, I think it's starting to break down more and more in our
It is, but the
culture.
reach to
But
our generations is a bit slower. The youngsters are getting it.
yes,
It's
they are.
still in a little, we're very stuck, but we're doing our bit to.
Well, yes, absolutely. But I think we need so many people of this generation, and I'm talking about my generation now as well. It's we need permission. We need to. People don't even think about it because the rules are so ingrained and programmed into us that it takes permission and repeated permission to say, well, what do you deserve? What does that person deserve? If you saw your daughter in this doing what you're doing, would you want them to be like that? Do you want them to be in that place where they're nurturing, or do you want them to nurture themselves a bit more? So,
Tracy, thank you so much. I will keep you posted on what comes of this.